They say when you get older, life settles down. Things make more sense. You stop chasing the high and start finding peace in the little things. That's what I thought, at least. I'm 52 years old, a warehouse supervisor in a small town outside Des Moines. I've been through one marriage already, messy, painful, but I got through it. Had a son from that, Luke. He's 25 now, tall, smart, quiet like I was at his age. We never had that father-son fishing trip bond, but we were okay. Then I met Julia. She was 34 when we got married. Beautiful in a way that still caught me off guard even years later. She had this wildness to her, like she'd lived fast and was trying to slow down, except, maybe, she never really did. Still, for 5 years, we had something close to happiness. Dinners together, road trips, nights on the porch with wine. She never wanted kids of her own, which was fine with me. I thought we'd just ride life out together. Then last spring, Luke lost his job in Chicago. The tech firm folded, and he needed a place to land. I told him to come stay with us for a bit. Just until he figured things out. Julia didn't even blink when I brought it up. She said it was sweet how I still cared for him like that. First couple weeks were fine. Luke was polite, quiet. He helped out around the house, cooked sometimes. He'd joke with Julia, more than I'd expected, but I didn't think anything of it. Julia laughed more around him than she did with me lately, but I figured that was just stress on my part. I was working overtime, trying to save up for a trip we'd talked about. And then, things started to feel off. I'd get home from work late and find the two of them on the back porch, sipping wine. Laughing. Sometimes she'd be in her robe, legs crossed like she used to sit when we first started dating. But when I walked in, everything would shift. Like a play just ended and I wasn't supposed to see the actors between scenes. One night, I got home around 10. She said she'd been in bed all night. But I noticed 2 wine glasses in the sink. Hers, and one with a faint smear of red lipstick. She only wore that shade when she was feeling playful, she used to tell me. I don't know why I remember that, but I do. Another time, I overheard them laughing upstairs. I thought they were watching a movie, but when I walked by the guest room, Luke's door, it was closed, and hers was open and empty. I knocked, and by the time the door opened, he looked like he'd just gotten dressed. Hair all messed up, shirt inside out. Said he'd fallen asleep watching something on his laptop. It was 1 a.m. I didn't say anything that night. I wanted to believe I was wrong. But I wasn't. What finally broke me was something small. It always is. I was cleaning out the laundry room on a Sunday, and I found a balled-up towel wedged behind the dryer. Why that stuck out, I don't know. But when I pulled it out, it smelled like her perfume. Heavy. Fresh. There was a small stain on it. I don't need to describe it. I knew. Any man who's been through betrayal knows. That night I slept on the couch. I told her I had a bad back, but the truth is I didn't want to be near her. I couldn't look at her without feeling sick. And Luke? He acted like nothing was wrong. Still calling me Dad, still asking if I wanted to go to the bar to catch the game. I didn't go. Instead, I started watching. Not like a creep. Not like a madman. Just watching. I'd wake up a little earlier. Come home a little earlier. I started jotting down the times she'd disappear for errands or go for walks. Always right after Luke came back from the gym. Their routines started to sync up. I didn't want to believe it. But deep down, I knew. I've always believed that if you're going to accuse someone of something, especially something that could burn your whole life down, you better be damn sure you're right. So I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I did what any hurt, suspicious, middle-aged man with a smartphone and too much time to think would do. I started digging. First step? I put an old phone I had in the living room, charger plugged in, camera aimed at the hallway. I set it to record every time it detected motion. Seemed harmless enough, and if it caught nothing, then maybe I could sleep again. I told myself that. It didn't catch nothing. The first 2 days, normal stuff. Her walking to the kitchen in the morning, Luke coming in from a jog. But on the 3rd day, I was at work, sitting in the break room, and I checked the cloud storage. There was a clip. Short, just 20 seconds. Julia stepping out of the guest room, in a nightgown. Hair messy, no bra. That gown? It was one I hadn't seen her wear in over a year. She didn't go back to our bedroom. She tiptoed to the bathroom, locked the door, and didn't come out for almost 10 minutes. That's when I knew. I didn't think anymore, I knew. But even then, I needed more. I ordered a small audio recorder off the internet. Something I could slip into the vent behind the guest room. It was cheap, simple. Recorded for days at a time. When it arrived, I pretended to go to the hardware store, waited until they were both gone, and installed it. The first day? Nothing. Just Luke talking to someone on the phone about job interviews. The second day, though, I sat in my truck in the driveway after work, hit play, and just listened. I heard her voice. Soft. Whispering. Laughing. I heard the creak of the bed. Then, a moan. Her moan. Not a generic, movie, sound. The kind of moan you memorize when you've been with someone long enough. The kind of sound that belongs to you. And now, it didn't. I turned the recorder off. Just like that. Didn't need to hear more. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wall while she made dinner. She was humming. She was happy. I looked at her hands as she chopped vegetables, the same hands that had held me for 5 years, and I felt nothing. I didn't even eat. Told her I wasn't feeling well. She said, "You've been off lately," and asked if I was okay. I said, "Just tired." She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Well, get some rest, babe." Babe. That word hit me like a slap. I hadn't heard her call me that in weeks. Maybe months. It was like she remembered the script she used to follow and decided to dust it off for a performance. I went to bed early, pretended to sleep, and when I heard her open the guest room door around midnight, I didn't move. I just stared at the ceiling. I couldn't shake the thought, she's with my son. My blood. My boy. The kid I raised alone after his mom walked out. What the hell kind of woman does that? What kind of man? No, what kind of son? It all started replaying in my head. The little laughs between them. The shared glances at dinner. How he'd brush against her when passing by. How she'd dress up more often, even if she was just going to run errands. I missed it all, or maybe I refused to see it. That next morning, I called off work. I told my boss I needed time for a family emergency. It wasn't a lie, it just wasn't one I could explain yet. I spent the entire day plotting what I'd do. Kick them both out? Publicly expose them? Ruin their lives the way they'd cracked mine in half? But nothing I came up with felt right. Nothing matched the weight of what they'd done. So instead, I waited. Not because I was weak, but because I wanted revenge that would last. One that wouldn't land me in jail or make me the bad guy. I wanted them to think everything was fine. I wanted her to keep calling me babe, and for him to keep saying thanks, Dad, every time I made coffee or picked up the tab. Because if I was going to burn this down, they were going to feel every inch of heat. The next 2 weeks were the hardest part. Every time I looked at Julia, I had to choke back the disgust that crawled up my throat. Every time Luke called me, Pops, or offered to grab groceries, I had to remind myself, smile. Act normal. Not yet. Because here's the truth, revenge isn't some movie scene where you blow up in the kitchen and throw a wine glass against the wall. It's slow. It's methodical. It's cold. If you want it to last, to scar, you've got to let it fester. I knew I'd only get one shot at this. If I played it too early, I'd end up a bitter old man yelling at a liar and a coward. But if I waited, if I really planned it, I could ruin them. First, I started documenting. Not just what I felt, but what I saw. Dates, times, photos from the hidden camera, audio clips. I compiled everything, quietly, into a folder on a flash drive. Named it something boring. Tax receipts 2022. I made copies. One I kept in the garage under the toolbox drawer. Another I sent to a buddy of mine, Mike, who's a lawyer in Kansas City. I didn't tell him what it was, just that if something ever happened to me, he'd know what to do with it. He thought I was being dramatic. Maybe I was, but I couldn't afford mistakes. At home, I played the part. I was loving husband, laid-back dad, the same easygoing guy they both thought I was too blind to notice what was happening. Julia started planning a trip. Just a girls' weekend, she said. Spa, wine country, something about getting away. She talked fast and gave too many details, classic sign of a liar trying to sound casual. I encouraged her, told her it was a great idea, even offered to pay for it. She kissed me on the cheek and called me sweet. That same night, Luke got home from the gym. Sweaty, earbuds in, shirt clinging to him. He went straight to his room, didn't even say hi. 10 minutes later, Julia knocked on his door with a glass of wine in her hand. She never brought me wine anymore. I watched from the hallway, just around the corner. Heard the click of his door closing behind her. I didn't need to hear more. I'd already heard plenty. That night, I started step 1 of the plan. I made sure Julia's phone synced with our shared cloud account. Years ago, I set it up to auto backup photos. She didn't even remember. I double-checked, still active. Then I went into the guest room when they were out the next day and placed a second phone, old burner, under the bed, pointing up. Motion-activated video. Completely silent. Battery set to last 5 days. I wasn't hoping to catch them in the act. I knew I would, and when I did, I was going to destroy them. 3 nights later, I got what I needed. I sat in the garage, in the dark, with my laptop open. I watched the footage come through. First Julia entered the room in her robe. Then Luke, shirtless. No hesitation this time. No pretense. They were comfortable, familiar, like it wasn't the first time. And as they lay there in my house, in my guest room, I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I just hit download and saved the video with a name I'd never forget. Thursday night final.mp4 inches. The next morning, I made eggs for everyone. Julia kissed my cheek and told me she was lucky to have a man like me. Luke said he had a job interview the next week, maybe down in Austin. I said, "That's great, son. Maybe a fresh start is just what you need." Then I smiled, because what they didn't know was that the next phase was already in motion. I'd opened a new bank account under my name only and moved half our joint savings into it. Legal, clean, undetectable until she tried to log in and noticed the balance wasn't what it used to be. I also made a quiet call to Luke's potential employer, the one he was interviewing with next week. Told them I was his father, and I had concerns about a recent incident involving sexual misconduct in the home. I didn't go into detail, just enough to plant doubt. They said they'd look into it. I could hear it in their voice. They wouldn't call him back. Julia's weekend trip? I paid for it, all right. Booked her a room right next door to a guy the first knew from back in the day. A guy who had no problem being a loud, drunk mess. I sent him $100 on Venmo with one note. Make sure she doesn't sleep well. It wasn't about sex. It was about ruining the fantasy. The fantasy that they could keep living under my roof, pretending I was clueless, while they got away with it. Now I wait. Because you don't burn people like this fast. You let them cook in it. Slow, bitter, just like the coffee I'm drinking right now as I write this. Watching Julia laughing at something on her phone and Luke sitting across from her like nothing ever happened. But soon, real soon, the truth is going to hit them both. And I'll be the one holding the match. It was a Tuesday morning when I started letting the rope slip. Julia was heading to the grocery store, said she'd be back in an hour. Luke was in the guest room, scrolling on his phone, probably still nursing that fake interview rejection he'd been brooding over. I was in the kitchen, sipping my coffee when I called out. "Hey, son, got a sec?" He came in, casual as ever. Same sleepy-eyed look he'd had since he was 12. But this time, I didn't see my boy. I saw a man who'd climbed into bed with my wife. He sat across from me and I smiled, just like I'd practiced. Calm, controlled. "I heard you didn't get that job in Austin," I said. He nodded. "Yeah, weird. They ghosted me after the first round." "Happens," I said. "You know, companies do background checks now. Pretty detailed." He looked up from his coffee. Just a flicker of something? Confusion? Guilt? Fear? Maybe all three. "You got anything they'd find concerning?" I asked. Real casual. "No," he said slowly. "Why?" I shrugged. "Just curious. Seemed strange to me." Then I leaned forward, elbows on the table. You know, I've been thinking a lot about loyalty, family, boundaries. Now he was squirming. I mean, your mom and I didn't work out, I continued, but I tried. I really did. I was always there for you, wasn't I? He swallowed. Yeah, of course. I waited, but he said nothing more. Didn't confess. Didn't apologize. Just stared at his mug like the coffee had answers. So I let it go. For now, because what I had planned next. That needed perfect timing. That night, Julia brought home steaks. Said it was a special dinner. For what, I didn't ask. I just helped her cook them. She opened a bottle of wine. Luke sat at the table, smiling again like we were all some twisted little family. Halfway through the meal, Julia raised her glass and said, "To new beginnings." I almost laughed. She thought she was winning. She thought I didn't know. But I was already 10 moves ahead. After dinner, I offered to do the dishes. Told them to relax. They went out back, laughing. I watched from the kitchen window as she poured him another glass of wine. He brushed a piece of hair from her face. They were so confident. They didn't even look around anymore. I waited until midnight, slipped out of bed and into the garage, pulled the backup flash drive out from under the toolbox drawer and loaded the video onto a fresh USB. Labeled it with masking tape, home insurance docs. Then I printed 3 photos. Still frames from the bedroom footage. They weren't pornographic, nothing illegal, but they were clear. Her lips on his chest. His hand on her waist. Their bodies way too close for stepmom and stepson. I slipped the photos into an envelope and addressed it to Julia Monroe, confidential. From TR Law Offices. Fake name. Didn't matter. It just had to look official. I slid the envelope into her briefcase the next morning while she was showering. She found it after lunch. I was in the garage when I heard the sound, faint, like a glass breaking against tile. Then the front door slammed. 10 minutes later, she came storming into the garage, holding the photos in her shaking hands. "What the hell is this?" she hissed. I didn't flinch, just looked up from the workbench. "Oh, you found those?" Her eyes went wide, red, not from anger, panic. "Where did you get this?" she asked. I wiped my hands on a rag. "Guest room. Camera. Same place you spent your Tuesday nights for the last 3 weeks." She stared at me, pale, speechless. "You know," I said, "I thought the worst part would be the betrayal. But it wasn't." She blinked. "Then what was?" "That it was him. My own son." She opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't even try to deny it. "I can explain," she finally whispered. "No," I said. "You can try, but I'll never buy it." She started crying, muttering something about loneliness, about how it just happened. I didn't care. I left her standing there, walked inside, and sat down at the table with Luke. He looked up at me, then down at the envelope I dropped in front of him. His face turned to stone. "You should start packing," I said. "Dad." I stood up, calm as a winter wind. "You've got 48 hours. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a punch. But the quiet cut deeper. I knew it when I saw Luke's hands trembling as he gathered his things. Knew it when Julia followed him around the house, sobbing and begging him to stay. Like they were the victims. Like they were the ones broken. I never said another word to either of them that day. Because I wasn't done. Luke left the next morning. Didn't even say goodbye. He didn't need to. The look in his eyes said it all. Guilt, shame, and maybe something worse. Like he still didn't fully understand what he'd destroyed. I stood by the window and watched him load the last of his stuff into the back of his car. Julia stood next to me, arms crossed tight over her chest. She didn't say a word either. The silence between us wasn't tension anymore. It was something colder, hollow. The second his taillights disappeared down the driveway, she finally broke. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said, voice shaking. I didn't answer. She kept going. I felt lost. He was kind. "You've been so distant lately," and that's when I looked at her. Really looked. This woman I'd trusted with my home, my peace, my second chance. The woman I gave a better life to, who smiled at me while she was sleeping with my own son under the same roof. You think I was distant? I said, my voice level. Julia, I was out working, paying bills, trying to hold this thing together while you and my son played house in my guest room. Tears welled up. Again. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'm sorry, she whispered. I just nodded. Yeah. Then I left the room. Over the next week, she tried everything. Cooking my favorite meals, putting on makeup she hadn't worn in months, leaving little notes on my nightstand like we were some high school couple patching up a fight. I didn't throw her out. Not yet. Why? Because I wanted her to live in it. To feel the weight of what she'd done every single time she turned a corner and saw me looking through her like she wasn't even there. And it worked. She stopped trying around day 5. The notes disappeared. The perfume faded. She barely left the bedroom. I think she expected me to scream, to throw her out, to sob in a ball on the floor. But I didn't, because the truth is, Julia wasn't the only one living in shame. There was a part of me that hated myself, too. For not seeing it sooner. For trusting them both. For welcoming my own son into my home with open arms. And giving him the chance to tear it all down. That guilt? That's a slow poison. But I kept drinking it, sip by sip. Then came the final piece. The revenge I'd been holding back. There's a community Facebook group, small town kind of thing. Everyone knows everyone, shares recipes, asks for lost dogs, that sort of deal. I posted anonymously. Homeowner here. Found my wife sleeping with my adult son in our house. Been collecting video evidence for 3 weeks. If you think your marriage is safe, think again. Check your guest rooms. It exploded. People guessed. People gossiped. But no one had proof. Until someone found the leaked footage. No face shown. Just a still image. Julia's hand on Luke's chest. The caption didn't name names, but our town's too small for mysteries to last. 2 days later, Julia was let go from her job at the dental office. Unprofessional conduct. They didn't say why, but I knew. Word had gotten around. The stares followed her at the grocery store. Her friends stopped texting. She started sleeping in the guest room, the same one where it all happened. She couldn't even look me in the eye anymore. Good. One night, a week later, she knocked on my bedroom door. I didn't answer. She opened it anyway. I'm leaving, she said, barely louder than a whisper. I sat on the edge of the bed, still tying my boots. Where to? My sister's. Out west. I just nodded. Okay. She hesitated. Aren't you gonna say anything? I looked at her, really looked, maybe for the last time. I already said everything when I gave you this life. And you threw it away. She started crying again, but I didn't flinch. And then she was gone. I stood in the doorway, watching her pull away with 2 suitcases in the back of her car. Same as I did with Luke. Funny how both of them left the same way, after shattering everything they touched. But I wasn't broken anymore. I was clean. Alone, yeah, but clear-headed for the first time in years. And free. Free from the lies. From the pitying looks. From the weight of pretending not to know. My son? He's not welcome back. Ever. Julia? I don't wish her well. But I don't wish her harm either. I hope she spends the rest of her life remembering what she destroyed. And me? I've started building something new. Quiet. Steady. Solid. No more illusions. Just truth. And maybe, peace. There's a certain stillness in the house now. Not peace, at least not yet. Just absence. Her perfume no longer lingers in the hallway. No more dishes left in the sink from late-night snacks. No sound of her humming to herself in the mornings while she made coffee. It's like she was never here. And honestly, part O. F me likes that. But there's another part, a quieter, bitter part, that keeps walking into rooms and expecting to see her. Or expecting to hear Luke laughing from the guest room like nothing ever happened. Even now, I sometimes catch myself listening for the creak of that hallway floorboard outside the bathroom, the one Luke always stepped on without realizing. It's not like I miss them. It's just, the ghost of routine doesn't die when the people do. It takes time. A few days after Julia left, I got a letter. Real envelope. Real stamp. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. I almost didn't open it. Half of me wanted to toss it in the trash unopened. Let it rot with all the other garbage she left behind. But I didn't. Inside was a short note. I'm sorry. I can't fix what I broke. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I hate myself for what happened. I loved you. Maybe I still do. I don't know. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to say it. Julia. No explanations. No begging. Just guilt on paper. I folded it neatly and slid it into a drawer. Not because I needed to keep it, but because I needed to choose not to burn it. It was the first sign she understood what she did wasn't just betrayal, it was annihilation. Luke didn't write, didn't call, no texts, no emails, no apologies, nothing. He disappeared like a man who knows he can't face the damage in the rearview. Last I heard, he was staying with his mother across the state. That figures. She always babied him, always treated him like he could do no wrong. I'm sure she heard some sanitized version of the truth. Probably that Julia came on to him, or that they were just confused. He'll lie his way through it like he always did as a kid. But this wasn't broken windows or skipped classes. This was something you don't walk back from. He's not my son anymore. Not in any way that matters. Funny how quiet grief can be when you don't let it turn into tears. Instead of crying, I just fixed things. I redid the guest room, new paint, new bed, new locks on the door. Made it into a reading room. A space for me. I tossed the mattress they used without a second thought. Dropped it right in the fire pit out back, watched it burn. No ceremony, just silence and smoke. I changed my will, removed Julia, removed Luke. No sense in rewarding people who tore your life apart. Started going to therapy, too. At first, I thought it was just to process the betrayal. But what came out surprised me. I wasn't just grieving the cheating. I was grieving who I used to be. The man who trusted too easily. Who wanted to believe that if you worked hard, stayed loyal, did the right things, the world would return the favor. That man died the moment I watched that video in the garage. Now I live a little differently. I don't let people in easy. But I see things clearer. I can smell lies before they're even told. I spot the red flags I once ignored. I stop trying to be the nice guy who overlooks every little thing to keep the peace. Because the peace I was keeping? It was fake. About a month later, I ran into someone at the hardware store. Linda, woman I hadn't seen in years. Used to be married to a guy the first worked with. She got cheated on too, back in the day. Her husband left her for a younger woman. Whole town knew. I remember thinking how sad she looked, how broken. Now, she looked solid, strong, eyes that had seen hell and built something better on the other side. We talked for a while. Just light conversation. Before she left, she said, "You know, I heard about what happened. And I just want to say, some people only look clean because they've never been tested. You've been through the fire, and you're still standing. That says more about you than anything they ever did." That stuck with me, because it was the first time since the whole mess blew up that I felt seen. Not pitied, respected. I still don't know what's next. I'm not looking to date. I'm not looking to rebuild something romantic. Not yet, but I am looking forward. I wake up every morning in a quiet house that doesn't lie to me. I sit on my porch with coffee and let the cold air bite my skin, just to remind myself I'm still alive. And some nights, I even sleep all the way through. Which might sound small to most people, but to me, it's everything. There's a point, after enough pain and enough silence, where you realize the story isn't really about the people who hurt you anymore. It's about the person you had to become to survive them. That's what part 7 is, I guess. The part where the smoke clears and you can finally see the ground again. About 6 weeks after Julia drove away, I found something under the couch while cleaning. One of Luke's old notebooks. Not a diary or anything, just a beat-up black spiral with sketches and to-do lists and pieces of ideas he scribbled down. Things he never said out loud. A couple drawings he made years ago when he was still in college, stuff he'd show me when he felt proud of it. I sat there holding it for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just realized something. I didn't lose him recently. I'd lost him gradually, over years, in small quiet ways I never noticed. And finding that notebook, This leftover piece of the kid he used to be was the final confirmation that the son I remembered was long gone. I put it in a box in the garage. Not to keep, just to set aside so I could decide later what to do with it. Sometimes you don't need answers. You just need things not touching you anymore. As for Julia, I heard through her sister that she moved again. Twice. Supposedly trying to start over, whatever that means. Her social media disappeared. No new job updates. No smiling selfies. Nothing. People like her always think they're chasing freedom, when all they're really doing is running from mirrors. I don't hate her anymore. And I don't forgive her either. She lives somewhere in that empty space in between, where people stay when you finally let go, but you're not letting them back in. One night, maybe 2 months later, I went to grab a burger at a little place near the highway. I'd never eaten alone in public much, it always felt awkward. But that night, it didn't. The waitress, a woman around my age, asked if I wanted to move to a booth with better lighting. I shrugged and said sure. She talked with me a bit while I ate. Not flirting, not probing, just talking, normal, human. It felt good, like I wasn't broken merchandise being inspected for cracks. Just a man having dinner after a long day. When she refilled my water, she said, "You've got one of those faces. Looks like you've lived through something, but you made it out all right." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. But you know what? For the first time, I believed it. A week after that, I started fixing up the house. Not because it needed it, but because I did. Painted the kitchen, replaced the old porch swing, moved the bedroom around, took down photos that didn't belong anymore, bought new ones that did, sunsets, mountains, quiet places. The house finally looked like mine. Not a home shared with someone who lied in it. Not a roof I unknowingly offered to two people who used it to betray me. Just mine. A few nights ago, I sat on that new porch swing with a blanket around my shoulders. The sky was clear and the air cold enough to keep me awake. I watched the horizon turn that deep navy color before sunrise. And I realized something simple, almost embarrassingly simple. I survived, not gracefully, not cleanly, but wholly. The truth didn't kill me. The betrayal didn't define me. And the revenge? It didn't consume me the way I feared it might. It just balanced the scales. And after everything, I don't feel empty, or angry, or vengeful. I feel steady, grounded, better than I've been in years. Like a man who walked through a house fire and stepped out on the other side with his eyes wide open. This isn't a story about how I lost a wife and a son. It's a story about how I found myself again. And maybe, if there's one thing I want anyone to take from everything I lived through, it's this. Healing doesn't happen when the people who hurt you apologize. Healing happens when you stop waiting for them to. Because once you stop waiting, you finally start living.